Hi guys, welcome to my channel. I hope you guys like my first introduction video. This video is all about my car and the modifications that I've done to them. I'll also be talking about my future plans with the car. And let's get started. Oh, and I bet you're thinking about why I have a bottle of oil. Well, for all the Honda people out there, you know exactly why I have a bottle of oil.
Alright guys, I'll begin with the exterior. At the front, I installed a Mugen front lip and an easy lip to protect it from being damaged. Besides that, I have just the LED headlights. I personally think the front end looks great, and I've seen the Mugen front bumper and I'm not a fan of the triangle cutouts. In the future, I may get the carbon fiber hood and fenders, but we'll see. Alright, let's move to the side. You can see here that I have the Mugen side skirts and it matches with Mugen front lip with a sort of body flare or molding. My good friend actually helped me create these side skirt lips with baseboards, and we just wrapped them in carbon fiber. For a cheap mod, not only does it look great, but they have protect me from those annoying Eglinton potholes. I also got the Mugen window visors, and I'm not gonna lie, they don't stop the water from coming in, but they look very good. For the rear, I installed the Mugen spoiler and Mugen rear bumper with the third brake light. No matter what others might say, it looks extremely clean to me. The third brake light actually is LED, so during the fog season, it actually helps others see you well since it's low to the ground. For my wheel setup, I have 17x9 Koenig gynograms wrapped in Firestone Indy 500s. The tire spec is 245x40. I can't stress enough how important tires are in your building. And although these aren't track tires, this is a daily, so I had to put street tires on it instead. Oh yeah, and also I can't forget the Mugen badge on this spoiler. We all know that adds 5 extra horsepower. Next on the list is the interior. So when I first got this car, it was the base, so I had the blue dash lights everywhere. Now because of that, I decided to change the upholstery on the doors, armrest, and the shift boot to a black and blue accent. The reason I had to change the speedometer and tach to red was because of the engine swap. I'll get to that later though. Besides the upholstery, I added this Pioneer double din. Specifically, it's the Pioneer AVIC Z140BH. I also added 4 new Pioneer speakers that I got for relatively cheap, obviously on Kijiji. Also, if anyone wants to know anything that I might have missed, just hit me up in the comments. I'll answer all your questions. Okay, so I also installed the Skunk 2 shift knob because after my drivetrain mods, I needed a heavy shift knob, and this is just about perfect for shifting fast. I'll also explain on that later. More on that later. Oh, almost forgot about the paint. Basically, I painted all the trims that used to be silver to black. I also bought a cheap stick-on trim for the steering wheel and painted it black and stuck it on. To be honest guys, I don't like the silver at all, and I'm still thinking of a way to get rid of the silver accent on the climate control. Besides that, I have the red tach and speedometer that was purely done for the engine swap. I used to rev to 6800 and now I rev to 8600. Besides that, I have soundproofed and deadened the rear deck area and the doors because after the new speaker install, I would hear way too many rattles and the bass felt loose. It's a much more solid interior after doing that. I also installed LED interior lights because the stock ones were very bad at lighting up the interior, especially after I tinted the windows. Finally, I installed the LED interior mood lighting because it looks nice, and a front and rear dash camera because lots of emotional drivers are always on the road. Suspension is actually kind of boring for my car. I'll include the brakes in this too. I did the SI conversion to the routers, calipers, and I got the HPS Hawk Street Race pads. It's a huge improvement, and I also got my handbrake cable replaced because it was seized, so obviously that helps. For the suspension, it's pretty much stock, except for my Godspeed Mono SS coilovers and K-tuned ball joints since they broke on the track. I know some of you will get annoyed because I spent more on the swap than the actual suspension, but in all honesty, if it's not broken, I don't need to change it yet. And I will be adding more suspension mods later on. I'll talk about that near the end of the video. But overall, just by adding the coilovers alone, they change the driving dynamics by a lot. Alright, so now we can finally move on to the engine and drivetrain. This is a huge parts list, so please bear with me. Alright, so first things first. I had a K20Z2 before, which is made for the Acura CSX or the Australian Civic. It's referred to as the FT Civic platform. That engine used to make 155 horsepower and 139 pound-feet of torque at the crank. Now I swapped in a K24 A2 with an EP3 Civic 6-speed gearbox. Well, it's not actually a EP3 Civic 6-speed gearbox, it was just in an EP3, and that's where I got these parts from. So I think the 6-speed is actually out of a RSX Type S instead, but I can't say for sure. We had to transfer all the parts over to an 8th Gen Civic SI transmission housing. When I got the engine and transmission from the car, it already had the RBC manifold, the Type S oil pump, RRC pulley, the K24 side bracket, RBC VTEC 50-degree gear, and the RDX gears. The RDX injectors. So one thing I want to clear is that I had my guy at JZ Motorsport take care of this for me and help me choose the correct modifications. So big ups to him, because without those guys, this would not have been possible. Alright, so when I got the motor and gearbox, we changed the seals, changed the second gear on the gearbox, the bearings, and also did any maintenance we might have needed, such as spark plugs. The gearbox, or transmission, whatever you want to call it, was actually a $2,000 job the previous owner did, in which all the gears were custom for this specific engine. So it's hard to say what the gear ratios are, but I do know that it has a 4.7 final drive ratio. I decided to go with the Exetti Stage 1 clutch since my power level isn't wild or anything. The motor already had a lightweight flywheel from before, and since it was fine, we just machined it and reused it. I also got the Speed Factory heavy duty detent spring kit in the transmission. I added the K-tuned CMC kit, which includes the slave master and the clutch line. I also got the K-tuned cold air intake, K-tuned exhaust, K-tuned intake manifold gasket, ported the RBC manifold to be 72mm all the way, got the ZDX throttle body and adapter, which is also 72mm, and I had to relocate the battery with the K-tuned relocator, as you can see. I also had to get the Hassport rear engine mount, Civic SI cluster and ECU, which I talked about before, the red tack and speedometer, the RSX Type S cable bushings, and finally the Type S fuel pump. The car was tuned with Honda 8th Gen Flash Pro, making 230 wheel horsepower and 209 pound-feet of torque at the wheels. So at the crank, that's approximately 280 horsepower and 250 pound-feet of torque. So with the custom gearing and this power level and my tire setup, I still have slight spin in the first gear, but I'm now looking at a 0 to 100 somewhere between 4 and 5.5 seconds. And I know it's a huge range, but all my methods of measuring are giving very different results, so I'm still trying to get accurate results. Personally, this build is for the track, so for future mods, this would include carbon fiber hood, carbon fiber fenders, literally every single suspension component. I might change the upholstery to red because, it looks nicer. And yeah, next year for sure I'm getting rid of all the rust, and then I'm going to bring the body back to its best. Please subscribe if you're into this kind of content, and I will be posting more videos for you guys as much as I possibly can.